So, welcome back to a brand new podcast episode of Family Seasons by Coach Teia. As always, I'm excited to bring you information that I believe will be a blessing to you and will just help you grow in your spiritual walk, that will help your families, go through the various seasons of life, and just that we could just come together and share the Word of God. I want to say this is actually a special podcast episode I'm actually doing a collaboration with Natasha of Little Bits of Bliss, and you can find her YouTube channel. Actually, I'll link it in the description box below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or if of listening or watching, or if you want to just check out her channel on YouTube. As I said, it's called Little Bits of Bliss. And so Natasha was able to put together this collaboration of other podcasters where we're just going to share what we believe God has given us, such a word at a season, that we're going through. If any of you all remember, I finished up season 11 just about a month ago, and so I've taken a break so that I can be refreshed and renewed. And so when I signed on to be a part of this collaboration, I thought it was perfect because I'm right in the middle of ending season 11 and preparing for season 12 of the podcast Family Seasons by Coach Teia. So I'm excited to be a part, to continue growing, to continue sharing what I believe God is giving me to share with you all as listeners. So thank you for your continued support, for liking, subscribing, and just the entire process that you've been on this journey for 12 seasons almost. And so I'm excited and just can't wait to see what God is doing. So I in season 11, as I said, if you one of the listeners, if you've been listening for a while, you know that in season 11, I started talking about Do It Afraid. I actually entitled it Do It Afraid podcast series. And I felt God speaking to me as I was preparing to go on a cruise and doing something that I'd never done before, being out in a large body of water, the whole thing. I'd never done that before, but I heard God saying, Do It Afraid. I needed this vacation. I needed this different. Something different. My family needed it. And so we ventured out to take this cruise. We had never done it before, but nevertheless, we were going to do it afraid. Especially the closer we got, when we pulled up and saw this huge ship sitting out there, and I'm thinking, okay, reality is here. I had my children with me, and one of them was excited, the other one was so nervous. Honestly, she cried even when we got on the ship. She did some crying, but eventually she became okay with it. But nevertheless, we were doing it afraid. My sister joined me and her husband. They joined, we joined as a family to go on this cruise. And as my sister tells me, she says, I was so afraid with every step that I took. When we were, just the whole traveling there, and because we're here in Dallas, so we were traveling to Galveston to the port. And so just that part was a little scary. And because we knew we were about to encounter something that was different, something we had never done before. But nevertheless, I kept hearing God say, do it afraid, do it afraid, do it afraid. I didn't know that He was going to use that experience of my life to birth a podcast series that I just can't let it go. I have to continue with this series because I want to hear from people who have some amazing testimonies of how they did it afraid. They were nervous, but they decided that it was more important to face that fear with faith and to conquer it and to just embrace their courage. And, as a result, they're better for it today. One of the things that I did not know when God had gave me the Do It Afraid topic is that I didn't know that Joyce Meyer had a book out entitled Do It Afraid. And I'm sure there are plenty of other books that are out there, but that's one that I was definitely led to use Joyce Meyer's book as a reference for the podcast series. And so I picked up the book, I picked up the study guide, and today I was asking God, what should I talk about in this collaboration? Because we all have different topics. Natasha did not give us a particular topic to speak upon, but she did give us the freedom to share what we believe would be a benefit to this awesome and amazing collaboration. And so I kept hearing God say, you have to keep talking about the subject, Do It Afraid. And so here I am. I want to talk about doing it afraid. And as I said, I am using Joyce Meyer's Do It Afraid book. I even have her workbook, and so her study guide. And I highly encourage you to pick up a copy so that you can just, learn more about fear and how we embrace fear and some of the tactics that God has given us to deal with fear. One thing that we know is that fear is inevitable. It happens to everybody. And I will tell you now, if you are in a place of fear or have experienced fear at some point in your life, you're human. You're okay. It's normal. It's not that you're some weird person or somebody that's different. It is okay. We all deal with fear. Fear is actually a healthy emotion because a lot of times fear is what gives us the fuel to do the thing that we fret or that we are so afraid of. My sister said that out throughout the walk, after we got dropped off from the shuttle and we were at the port and we were about to board the ship, that she had so much fear and she was smiling, but on the outside she was smiling, but on the inside this fear was there, and so many others, there are many others that I'm sure had the exact same feelings. But she says that she kept walking, she kept going forward, and so once she got on the boat, got on the ship, she felt a huge sigh of relief. And so, as a matter of fact, she and her husband absolutely loved it. They had the most amazing experience, on this cruise. And so, but she did it afraid. We know that we have to keep walking. It is that fear that fuels us to say, listen, I'm going to do this thing. I've paid for this cruise. I need this break. I need to get away. I need to be around water. I need to go somewhere different. I need a different experience in my life. We just lost our mom just last year. This is 2022 that I'm recording. And so we lost our mom in 21, and that's very devastating. A few months later, we lost our best friend, another great friend. She was actually a cousin of ours, but we lost her, and she was kind of helping us get through, losing our mom. And so we went through so much throughout 21, of course, the pandemic and all those things, but we knew that we needed something different. And so this was perfect timing. We think about how we went, we did it afraid, we took a chance, and we absolutely enjoyed it. We loved it. And so fear is a healthy emotion because it really did give us that fuel to keep going. I was not going to turn back, and so it gave us a fuel. But also fear, when we allow it to cripple us, or when we allow fear to overrule us or to paralyze us, then those are the negative side effects of fear. When we allow our past experience or our past experiences, and we're just an accumulation of all of our experiences, right? Everything that has happened in our past, represents who we are today, and so we are an accumulation of that. But when we allow the things of our past to paralyze us or to not allow us to move forward, to cause us to move into a place of doubt and to just be restricted and to not realize that there's so much more or greater is on the other side of this fear. When we get to that point, then it's unhealthy. I particularly want to talk about in Joyce Meyer's study guide on chapter 14, she talks about how you can love fearlessly. Freedom from the fear of letting yourself love. Now that's a powerful one. Many of us have developed a fear when it comes down to loving someone or love. And oftentimes that has to do with something that has happened in our past. But we know that the Bible tells us to be courageous. We know that the Bible tells us to be very courageous. That we have a responsibility to walk in love and to love our brothers, to love our sisters, despite all the things that may have happened, despite all the craziness that's going on, we're still commanded to love one another. So how do we move past the fear? How do we deal with the fear when we know this person has wronged us, or when maybe something has happened in our past that we just can't let it go? We're afraid. Maybe you were hurt by someone you loved, and as a result, you can no longer trust people. Maybe you have a distrust for men or for women because you were hurt. So you were hurt in such a way that it damaged you, that it broke you. But here's the thing about God is that God he specializes in healing the broken pieces of our heart. He wants us to not allow fear to cripple us or to cause us to be stagnant. God says that He wants us to move forward. He wants us to live an abundant life. He gave us this life so that we can live it abundantly. So how do we love fearlessly? How do we walk in freedom? How do we walk in the freedom of letting somebody love me now? I was hurt bad. I was hurt. It really did. It hurt. You know, your experience hurt. We're not discrediting what happened. You were hurt. How do you keep going in life? It's about the mindset. You have to set your mind on the changes that you want to accomplish in your life. You have to be intentional. We have to be intentional. I remember going through something so devastating and just dealing with things that if I would have held on to it, it would have taken me out. It would have placed me in such a dark place, a dark space of depression and anxiety and all those kind of things, but I could not allow it. I went through it for a while, but there was a season, and as this podcast is called Season, because we all go through seasons, right? I went through it for a season, but the time came when I did not like the way that my life was existing. Matter of fact, I was not existing. I was here, but I wasn't existing. And so I knew that I had to do something different. I knew that I just couldn't keep going in that area. I couldn't keep holding on to my past because I'm a pretty optimistic person. That's just kind of my nature. My natural instinct is to be, uplifting, and I'm pretty optimistic. And most times I didn't like the way my life was. I didn't like the way things were looking in my life. It was becoming very dark. But I knew that I had to be intentional about making changes in my life. And it started with my mindset. In Joyce Meyer's book, she quotes Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. to say, "Love is the master key that opens the gates of happiness, of hatred, of jealousy, and most easily of all, the gate of fear." Love conquers all, in other words. But it takes the mindset shift. You've got to have your mind prepared to shift in a way so that you can receive freedom. Freedom to love someone past the hurt, past the pain. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that if we continue to allow fear to be a gate, it's going to keep us out. It's going to keep us away from the other side of freedom, from the other side of love, from the other side of life. You think about it. Anytime you've been really hurt, usually when you're really hurt, you're not productive. Imagine living in a time or living in a place where you're just totally so afraid or so fearful or just so hurt and so many of these things that you basically stop existing. I mean, you're here, but there's no life to your life. Imagine that gate in front of your life and you're saying, "Okay, God, these tears are flowing because I'm hurt, but I want more." As I said, I've been there. I've been in that position where being hurt by someone that I love, being hurt by something or maybe my whole thoughts and idea was to, do all these great and wonderful things for the person, and it didn't work out that way. But I knew I could not stay that way. I couldn't stay there. So imagine fear as a gate, and it's keeping you locked out of all that God has for you on the other side. I love life. I love outdoors. I love going places. I love being with people. I love talking to people. I absolutely love life. Not because it's been easy, no, because I make a conscious decision to love life, and I'm grateful for that. So for me to stay behind that gate, that locked gate, it was unfair to me. It was unfair to God. It was unfair to my children. It was unfair to the people who wanted to see me free. So I had to make a conscious decision that my mindset has to change. There has got to be a shift. And I had to make that choice by doing it afraid. I don't know what's on the other side. I don't know if I'll ever experience those things again on the other side. But what I do know is I cannot stay where I am. I refuse to be stagnant. I'm going to have to embrace life. I'm going to have to take, as I've heard before, and I've said it many times, that when fear knocks on the door, let faith happen, let faith open. I'm going to have to, I've decided I'm going to have to move to the other side. And I'm going to have to move and shift in love, because I am too worthy of allowing this fear to just destroy me. I'm not going to do it. So when we think about fear, I want to go over a few. There are 6 fear-fighting truths that Joyce mentions in this study guide. And as I said, I hope that you would grab a copy of it, because it is absolutely amazing. If you really want to work through some fears and work through some issues, I highly suggest that you grab the copy of the book and the study guide. And if you have a couple people that you want to join, and maybe you all can do a little book club or something, it would be absolutely awesome. But if it's just you, I highly suggest it. And so, let me just say this also, this is not a promotion. I'm not getting anything out of this. It's just something that has blessed my life. These are the key truths from chapter, and actually in chapter 14, which, I kind of just summarized it. But basically, here are some truths, fear-fighting truths. Number 1, people are often afraid to love others because they are afraid they will be hurt, rejected, betrayed, abused, or abandoned. Love does require vulnerability and risk, but still is not something you should fear. Okay, we're talking about love. As I said, I knew on the other side was love. I knew on the other side of the fear was freedom. I knew that there was life on the other side. And if I allow fear to just stay there, if I allow myself to stay in a place of fear, then, there is a fear of being rejected, being hurt again, going through all those things that have happened. That's normal. That's a normal thing. Another, the second key is the key to being able to love other people is to first receive God's love for yourself. God has given us an abundance of love. And when we get to a place of knowing that, okay, I'm worthy of God's love, that's an eye-opener right there. That's life-changing. To know that I am worthy, me, with faults and issues and imperfections and all this stuff. I'm worthy of God's love. Here I am worthy of God's love. When I realize that I'm worthy of God's love, that's going to help me be able to push past the fear in my life so that I can get on the other side of that locked gate. The third key is, biologically speaking, you can live without love, but life would be lonely and miserable. Love gives your life meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and joy, and it does. Sure, there are people that say, and I've met people, not many, but I've met people that, they're so stuck on, maybe they're stuck on their past, or they're stuck on things that have happened, and they are not willing to change or willing to move or willing to make any changes. And they'll say, I'm not lovable. Here's the thing. You can stay there, but that's not what God designed for our life. God gave us love so that we will have fulfillment and meaning in our life. And what do you say? Well, love by who? Just loving people, loving life, loving things, love. God gave us love so that we would feel, so that we would be able to appreciate the love that He has for us. Maybe that's loving a child. Maybe that's loving your parents, loving your neighbor, loving your community, but just the fact of love. The fourth, truly loving others requires letting go of selfish desires, attitudes, and habits. And it does. When we make a decision to love, and we know if we have children, or you're in a relationship, married, or whatever the case is, love is a sacrifice. It requires us to let go of all the times what we want. When you have children, I don't care how you might have these plans and you have these ideas, the love that you have for that child will make you change all of that. You may absolutely love sleep, but we all know that when a newborn comes into this world, your love for sleep will change. We all know that, you may have your favorite places to go and your favorite things to eat, but when you have children, that changes. And that's because most parents are unselfish. We operate, unselfishly. We realize that this is a part of love. We'll make the sacrifice. Okay, I'll go there. It may not be your favorite thing. Some kids, they want pizza and they want this and they want that. Maybe it's not your favorite thing, but don't we know as parents, can't we agree that We end up eating way more McDonald's or pizza than we really want. Why? Because we're making sacrifices. Another thing is that another key here is that everyone to whom you try to express love will not receive it. But keep trying to show love and kindness, even if people reject your generosity. And that's true. Everyone will not receive your love, and that's okay. Because we don't want to be placed in situations where we're being abused, we're being mistreated. That is not what this is about. When you realize God's love for you, you will not allow yourself to be mistreated not another day. You will not allow yourself to stay in bad situations or to constantly be around people that are demeaning or that's bringing you down. You will not allow it, because you found out you found out your self-worth. You realize that God says you're mighty and amazing and you're wonderful and you're all these things. He says, I created you in my own image, so you're perfect. When you realize who you are, you will not allow people to destroy you. And that's another thing. You will learn to love from a distance, because that's the key. God already knew we couldn't be around everybody. He never designed us to be with everybody. There are people in the world that do all kinds of things. God knows that. So the desire was never that we would be with those people that abuse us, or be with those people that hurt us, or be with those people that make us feel bad. He never designed us for that. Never did God design us for that. And finally, it's here, when you love, you may be wounded. And Jesus heals every hurt and wants you to forgive those who hurt you and offer them second chances, just as he forgives and offers them to you. Now, this is what I want to talk about this, because the second chances means that you say, God, I forgive that person. And that's huge. And listen, I'm talking about when you've really been hurt. But when you have the love of God on the inside of you, it's bigger than anything else. It's bigger than the past, because you realize that God's love is enduring, and it's all these things. And I'm going to read a couple of scriptures as I begin to close out. But God's love is all these things, but fear. And that means that, how do we talk about doing it afraid? How do we love somebody afraid? You say, listen, I love you because I'm commanded to love you. I'm commanded to love one another. That is a commandment. God did not give us that as a multiple choice. Our commandment is to love one another. Even those that have tried to absolutely take us out, he wants us to love them. We do not have to be with them. We don't have to be around them. You no longer have to speak to them. You don't have to go and have dinner with them. You don't have to do any of those things, but you have to love them. That's God's commandment, not mine, because it's hard. I've been through some things, and it's hard. It's hard to love somebody that have lied on you, mistreated you. It's hard. But then I refuse to live my life behind a locked gate. I'm going to be free. And I can't be free if I'm holding on to unforgiveness, or if I'm holding on to things that you said to me. That you did it. You said it. But I'm not going to allow that to bring me down. I have too much purpose. There's purpose in you. God has a plan for you. He has so many great things that's there and in store for you. I can't afford to stay stuck in hatred. I can't afford to continue to be afraid to love again. I'm going to keep loving. I'm going to keep loving. I'm wise. I'm wiser now, but I'm going to keep loving. In, let's see what scripture it is. In 1 John 4:18, we are reminded that there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Fear has torment, and he that fears is not made perfect in love. So anytime you're going to allow fear to stop you from loving, God says that there is no fear in love. There's no fear in love. You just love. I'm just love you. As I said, I don't have to be around you. I don't have to call you, but I love you. I will pray for you because I've got to operate in the love of God. This is what God requires. And it is hard. And we have to grow to this place, and we have to pray to be in this place. It took me a while to get in this space, but I'm determined that I'm going to do it afraid. Am I afraid to do certain things? I get that way, but I can't afford to be stagnant. I have to keep growing. There's so much more that's greater on the other side, and I'm not going to stay locked behind this gate. There's a whole world out here. There are people out here that are ready to love you. There are people out here that are praying for someone to love them. It could be a senior that's, living in a senior home, or someone that needs somebody. But there are people that are begging for someone to just to feel the love. I have people, since my mom left, I have a few ladies in my life that I just call them to check on them, let them know I love them. They absolutely adore that. They need it. I need it. So there's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. And that is our goal, is to have that perfect love that God designed. He knows it's hard, but he knows that it's absolutely doable. Why? Because we're trusting him. I'll say, okay, God, I trust you. I'm going to make a decision to trust you no matter what. And then in this final scripture, well, actually, there are two more scriptures. There's one that the Bible, and actually you can read it. And even if you get the study guide, you'll be able to see this in chapter 14. But you'll see where it says that in 1 John 3 and 14, that life without love is death. I'm scared of people that have no love. I don't want to be around people that have no love. And how do you know whether they have love or not? In how they treat people, in how they treat others, and the things that they say, the things that they do. You can tell when people don't have that love of God. It shows up. But the final scripture, and this is what I want to leave with you, is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 7. And I'm going to read it out of the King James Version. But it says, charity suffereth long and is kind, and charity envieth not. We're talking about love. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Love bears all things, believe all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Love never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. But when there is perfect love, God says there's a perfect love. He says that in verse 13, for we know that now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. But the greatest of these is charity, which is love. And if you read other versions, it's charity is the same word as love. Do it afraid. Make a decision today that you are going to love again. You're going to push past the fear. You're going to trust God. You're going to do it afraid. But you're going to love fearlessly. Does that mean that you're going to stay in a bad situation? No, not at all. But that means that you have the perfect love of God. Not the love that I did not design or did not create it. God did. And he commands us to love one another, to love our brothers, to love our sisters. Love bears all things, regardless of what comes. Love believes all things, looking for the best in one another. Love hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times. And love endures all things without weakening. Love never fails. It never fades nor ends. I hope and pray that this podcast has been a blessing to you. I am Coach Teia, a certified Christian family life coach here in Dallas, Texas. You can find more information about me at familyvision2020.com or coachteia.com. You can always reach out to me at info@coachteia.com. I am praying for you. I want to see your family win. I want to see you win. I want to see you moving past the fear, doing it afraid, living your life, living your best life, knowing that God has given you so much, just so much courage. If we decide to use it, embrace the courage that he's given us. Be strong and courageous, he tells us constantly in his word. I also want to thank Natasha once again for just putting together this collaboration. I pray that you would continue to just listen to each one of the collaborations that are being put in place. I thank you so much. Also, her information will be in, as I said, the description box below. But always just know that I'm praying for you, we're praying for you, and that God has designed for you to win. Thank you so much.